Welcome to the series of videos on surface productivity tools for AutoCAD Civil 3D. In this video, we'll cover the Surface Statistics Label command.
Civil 3D allows us to add a lot of different label content that is dynamic to the surfaces, but one key component that isn't allowed for is surface statistics. If I go into a surface and go to the Statistics tab, there's different information in here that doesn't populate into any labels, and a lot of times I'm asked to show some of this information on my drawings regarding a surface for back checking or volume calcs or things like that, and so I'm often finding myself having to find a way to extract this or take screenshots of this dialogue, and I'd rather just have it as text in my drawing. And so in Civil 3D, there's four types of surfaces. We have tin volume, grid, and grid volume surfaces. And so some of this data is relevant for each type of surface. Some of it is specific only for tin, some's only for grid, and then there are some not shown here that are specific for volume surfaces. And so we have built a tool that allows us to label this information in your drawings and build different style sets of that. And so that's the Surface Statistics Labeler. And if we go into our settings and go to the Surface Statistics Label tab, then come in here and take a look at what's in here right now. We pre-populate just one style, and you can build out whatever you need. But you have the option of selecting the surface type that you want it to apply to. And so in this case, it's all surfaces, and this is the relevant data that you could show for all surfaces. And then you have tin, grid, tin volume, grid volume, and as you select, more data will show up that you are capable of adding. So you can create a new style, you can edit styles, rename styles, delete, all that good stuff. And then down here for each style, you can control how it gets placed in your drawing as an M-text, multi-leader, table, you name it, you've got that control there as far as how it gets displayed. So let's make a volume style here. And so I'm going to call this tin volume table. And then I'm going to go through and select. Now over here on the right is kind of a visualizer of what's going to populate in your label, or even in this case a table. And so then as I pick, it's going to show up in that order. And so then I could come down here and I could say, well, I want to see the min and the max elevation and maybe the mean elevation. And then I also want to see the cut, fill, and net volumes. And so this is kind of what the label would look like, or the table in this case. Each one of these would be its own column for a table. And then I come down here and I would select table, and then I would pick my table style, and I would pick what layer I want that table to go on. Do I want it to report in all caps, lines as rows, lines as columns? You've got those options to adjust that. And then for a table, you want it to scale to the drawing typically, so that it uses this annotation scale, especially if it's going into model space. However, you can place these in paper space as well, even though you can't select the surface from paper space. We give you that ability. And so I'm going to go ahead and click Add Style and keep that as my current style. And I'm going to hit Apply. And so now when I run Surface Statistics Label, I could select a surface. It's going to try to use that tin volume table, but this is not a tin volume surface, so it won't let me do that. If I right click, I can select it from a list, and I can pick my VolCalc surface here and hit Apply and place that table in my drawing, and I can see that content that I put in there for my style. If I go to my Layout tab and do the same thing, I could run that same tool and right click and select the VolCalc and hit Apply and drop that in paper space, and there's the same data showing up now in my paper space for that same style. So a really useful tool as far as being able to label that information easily in your drawing and show that, and represent it on your plans. It is also dynamic to the surface. Not dynamic, I shouldn't say that word. There's a quick way to update. So if your volume surface becomes out of date, or whatever surface it is you're labeling, you just hit this button right here, Update Surface Statistics Labels, and that will go and find all those labels and update them to the current surface. So you could have multiple in your drawing, and you just run this, and it's going to go find them all and make sure that they're up to date to whatever the surface is. So it's fairly quick to do. If you need to move your styles between drawings, if you hit the pull down on the labeling here, there's an export and import ability of the surface statistic styles, because it is separate from the overall settings where it gets saved. So you do have to run these to export those styles out and save them somewhere, and then import them into another drawing.
Thanks for watching. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and be sure to check out our other apps on the Autodesk Exchange Store.